We tested the latest Samsung Galaxy Book6 Pro against Apple's MacBook Pro 5 for 7 full days across 5 different categories. And I can tell you right now that some decisions on Apple's side make absolutely no sense. I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com. I have to say it straight away, this Galaxy Book is so good looking and so thin. This sharp wedge silhouette actually reminds us of the classic MacBook Airs, and that's a good thing though, because this MacBook Pro is kind of a chunker. And I don't just mean visually, it weighs a solid 3.4 pounds, while the Galaxy is just 2.7. Both have solid aluminium chassis, though this Galaxy has a plastic underplate. And let me tell you, it actually impacted how hot it got in our performance testing. But more on that in just a bit. Both keyboards feel nice and clicky, and both also pack haptic trackpads, though the one in the MacBook, it's definitely larger and feels more pleasant to use in a way. Both come with fingerprint scanners, but where this slim boy falls short is on ports, because you're gonna need a dongle if you want to read SD cards, which is ironic coming from a Windows laptop. But let's zoom in on these displays, because one of these completely refuses to give you a panel worth your money, and it's not the one that you might expect. So both of these have 14-inch displays and support up to 120 Hz. But this MacBook is IPS, the exact kind of panel you find on cheap phones. It is mini LED and has local dimming though, but let me show you why it's still bad. Local dimming brightens up certain sectors of the panel depending on what's being displayed, causing this distracting blooming. The Galaxy, on the other hand, uses an AMOLED panel, and multimedia is just amazing, with pixels actually turning off for deep blacks and bright whites. But that's not all, it's also a touchscreen. Yes, Samsung gives you right now what Apple will probably only include on the rumored MacBook Ultra. Also, OLED displays consume far less energy, and you will see in our battery drain test that it did make a difference. Having said that, the MacBook was indeed brighter when we tested typical high brightness, but that's usually the case with IPS displays. For all the screen specs, you can pause the video right here. So Samsung is the clear leader when it comes to displays, and it shows. However, the MacBook does support more HDR formats if that's a priority for you, but if performance and software are what you care about the most, well, we have some good and some bad news for you. Our Galaxy Book comes with Intel's Core Ultra X7, whereas our Mac has, of course, Apple's M5, both with the exact same amount of RAM. Here's a full breakdown on performance specs. So you can see what these chips can actually do, we pushed them through some real-world testing, which of course includes gaming. But let's begin with our benchmark results so you can get a sneak peek of what the real-world tests will show. Just so you know, both computers were plugged in during our testing. Let's check out Cinebench first, which not only stresses the CPU, but also the GPU at the very same time. And as you can see, this MacBook conquered this first test with ease, especially for single thread, where the difference in scores was definitely noticeable. Next up, we have the popular Geekbench 6. Single core performance was clearly superior on the Mac, but if you look at the multi-core, both were pretty much at the exact same level, crossing the 17,000 points barrier. Though once we switch to the GPU test in OpenCL, you can see this Galaxy Book slingshotted to first position with almost 10,000 points more than the Mac. Moving on to 3D Mark's Solar Bay Extreme, despite Samsung's computer winning the last GPU round by a good margin, it placed second this time around. Though results were not super different between both computers, with almost the same maximum FPS. But this is just a benchmark. We're gonna show you actual gaming revealed some major differences. But before we get to that, in Speedometer, which measures web application speed, this MacBook running Safari was definitely speeding, while this Galaxy running Edge was just cruising. And for our last benchmark, if you manage big files, well, storage speeds result in another category going to this MacBook, as almost every test showed much better speeds on this one. But listen, nobody runs benchmarks benchmarks in their day-to-day. So let us show you how these perform in the real world once we push them with some heavy productivity tasks, plus the gaming we promised you. Let's start with Lightroom. Here we lined up 99 photos and clicked export. We have to say both were very quick, not taking even 2 minutes, but the MacBook still got a half-minute lead. To test video rendering, we put together a 10-minute 4K 25 FPS project and rendered it first on DaVinci Resolve. We don't know what's up with the Galaxy, but for whatever reason, it randomly froze mid-rendering every single time. So this was an automatic KO for the Galaxy. But it gets even weirder because once we put that same 10-minute project on Adobe Premiere Pro, the Galaxy went through it like nothing had happened. It was 2 minutes slower than the Mac, but for comparison, that's still faster than the MacBook Air M5 we tested earlier this year. And to go out with a bang, let's check how these computers handled one of the most graphics-demanding games out there, Cyberpunk 2077. Alright, so we selected the same preset graphics on both computers and ran the in-game benchmark to give you an idea of the general FPS you will get. We started conservative with the medium graphics preset, and surprisingly both achieved more than 60 FPS, but as you can see, the Galaxy did a bit better. But of course, we raised the challenge with ultra settings. We got a bit less FPS overall, but the gap between these two actually grew, putting the Galaxy at a very comfortable level. If you've played the game, you know there's a ray tracing overdrive preset, which really puts that hamster inside the GPU to work. And yeah, I mean, we only get 12 FPS on the Galaxy, which is not really playable, but it was still better than the Mac. Oh, and to rub salt in the wound, the Galaxy was also a bit cooler than the Mac after gaming for around 30 minutes. The difference was not that massive, but there was a difference. So that just shows that despite 3D Mark saying the Mac is better, actual gaming proved that wrong. So the good news is that if you want to grab the Galaxy Book, it will run your games much better than the MacBook. Plus, you don't have to check for compatibility at all, though the bad news is that it runs basically every other task like video and photo rendering a bit slower. So it's really up to you on what you want to compromise. As for software support, Windows computers typically get around 10 full years of software, whereas Mac gets around 7, though we're yet to see how long Apple actually supports Apple Silicon computers. Apart from games, another added benefit for Windows computers is that they can run almost every program you can think of. Though on the other hand, the macOS has much better codecs for video and photo editors that make everything run as smooth as a hairless cat. But being completely honest, you can always adapt to using either operating system. What we refuse to adapt to, though, is miserable battery life. And sorry about your anxiety, but one of these is going to have you hunting for an outlet every single time you take it out. Given this Galaxy is so thin, we have a smaller battery on this one. Charging speeds are far from slow on either, but the Mac still takes the lead. But let's put these side by side and see which one actually survives the longest. Our drain test consists of a wide array of tasks like video streaming, web scrolling, and even a bit of Wuthering Waves for good measure. And then just let them run until they say arrivederci. This is definitely an extreme scenario, but the MacBook was still the first one to throw in the towel at the 1 hour and 36 minutes mark. Whereas, as we hinted before, the Galaxy kept the lights on for another 24 minutes. This was once again probably due to the use of an OLED display, which Apple just refuses to give you. But before you hear our final thoughts on Samsung's ultra sleek computer, you have to check out the camera and speakers on these two, because all that sleekness definitely comes with another share of trade-offs. So here is what the camera quality looks like straight out of both of these devices. So over here we have the Galaxy, and then over here we have the MacBook. What do you guys think? How do they look? Now let's switch off the lights and see how they handle low light situations. So here we are in low light, and all we've got on is one tiny light over there. How are both of these performing? Here we have the Galaxy, how's it handling it? And then over here we've got the MacBook. Is it doing a better job? What do you guys think? So the MacBook looks a bit softer, but its low light performance and mics definitely make up for it. Unfortunately though, you're gonna have to live with that ugly notch that doesn't even feature Face ID. But when we tested the speakers, boy, this MacBook completely blew us away. The 6 speakers inside of this Mac are so good that you could literally throw a party with this single computer. Hear it for yourself.
That's how I get it. Success ain't no given. Some days I don't eat, I don't sleep. When I'm focused, I'm tired, just down on it when I'm anxious, ain't no limit till I tank. I'm running on fumes, the opposition don't amaze. The roads racing through the pavement, get your hands out of my bag. I know that's because I've been in it. I don't need to...
So, in the end, Apple's decision to put an IPS display instead of an OLED on this MacBook is definitely questionable. Also, it's not even a touchscreen, just so you'll buy an iPad to go with your computer. But on the other hand, is the Galaxy Book6 Pro really worth $350 more than the MacBook? You do get a much better display, better gaming performance, surprisingly better battery life, and more portability. But at $2,449, which is the price of our tested unit, we feel it's better to compromise on those features and get the $2,099 MacBook Pro M5. Plus, you can use that saved cash to get 300 pieces of fake grass, so you can touch grass wherever you are. You can also opt for lower specs on both computers, but even then, the MacBook comes out as the better deal. But what do you think? Which one fits your actual needs better? But have you ever wondered if Windows or macOS is better if you have absolutely no spending limit? Well, sadly, for our bank account, we spent $12,000 to test that out. But luckily for you, you can find our results right here, and the answer is clear. Also, in case you want exclusive access to videos and perks, go ahead and press that join button. Here's a very special shout out to our latest Ultra members: Talha, Angel, Pharaoh, Triple R, Gilberto, Game Lost, Jakub, Rume, and Love Samurai. And before you go and search for last night's match results, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and hit subscribe, as we're always testing new devices to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.